Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is asking that people celebrating Canada Day also make time to reflect on the nation's historical failures and commit to building a more fair and equitable society. Today, we celebrate our country and everyone who calls it home, said Trudeau in a media statement. But while we acknowledge our successes, we must also recognize that, for some, Canada Day is not yet a day of celebration. The Prime Minister's unusually somber Canada Day message comes in the wake of discoveries of children's remains and unmarked graves at the sites of former residential schools in British Columbia and Saskatchewan. Trudeau said the revelations have rightfully pressed us to reflect on our country's historical failures and the injustices that still exist for Indigenous peoples and many others in Canada. News of the discoveries at the former residential schools have prompted a national reckoning about Canada's historical mistreatment of Indigenous people and shone a light on inequities still experienced by those communities. Those conversations have cast a long shadow over a holiday that has typically been celebrated by political leaders as a joyous occasion. Trudeau's official July 1 itinerary does not include any traditional Canada Day celebrations, which have in any case largely been put on hold due to ongoing COVID-19 restrictions. The Prime Minister instead has plans to speak with Phyllis Webstead, the executive director of the Orange Shirt Society, a nonprofit organization that supports residential school reconciliation. Residents flee Lytton, BC, as wildfire rips through town. Europe sees surge in coronavirus cases. Poet Danny Knight shares why he doesn't celebrate Canada Day. Residents call for wildlife control near Minto. Lytton, BC. Evacuated after wildfire moves in after heat wave. Fast-moving fire tears through village of Lytton, BC. BC records 486 sudden deaths amid extreme heat. Bill Cosby released from prison after sexual assault conviction overturned. Jordanian man struggles to move forward after acquittal on terrorism offenses. The psychological impact of the pandemic and the struggle to return to normal. Basketball player Kim Gaucher and boxer Mandy Bujold to compete in Tokyo Olympics. Delta variant forces shutdowns in Australia and Bangladesh. Green Party leader Annamie Paul to face another non-confidence motion. Ontario reopens hair salons and barbershops in move to Phase 2. Orange shirts to honor the children. 182 graves found near former residential school near Cranbrook, BC. Perry Bellegarde, National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, asked non-Indigenous Canadians to spend time today learning about the country's shared history with First Nations. On this Canada Day, I lift up the many concerned Canadians reaching out to First Nations and joining the effort toward reconciliation, he said. He also called for justice for survivors of residential schools. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is also foregoing any celebratory Canada Day events. He plans to meet with Indigenous leaders and host a community gathering to discuss reconciliation in his riding in Burnaby. BC Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole struck a similar tone of reflection and celebration in his Canada Day message, though O'Toole did not explicitly reference the recent discoveries at former residential schools. We are not a perfect country, but our shared commitment to the values of Canada means that we should use this National Day of celebration as an opportunity to recommit to building a more inclusive and just society today and in the future, O'Toole wrote. While in-person Canada Day celebrations were cancelled for the second consecutive year in Ottawa due to the pandemic, at least 1,000 people marched to Parliament Hill today for the Every Child Matters walk, held in recognition of Indigenous children who died while attending residential schools. People wearing orange clothing gathered near the Centennial Flame in front of Parliament, where the Canadian flag remains at half-mast in recognition of the recent discoveries at residential schools. Chantel Barnaby, a member of the Eel Ground First Nation in New Brunswick, hoped the march would focus the country's attention on reconciliation. It's not about cancelling Canada Day, it's about recognizing and mourning our kids that never came home, she told CBC News. Barnaby noted that Indigenous people are grossly overrepresented in Canadian prisons and in foster care programs. She said Canada must commit to fulfilling the 94 calls to action in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report. This is happening. The genocide is continuing, she said. We want our kids home, and we want support for healing. Canadian Heritage plans to still go ahead with virtual Canada Day events, including an online music show featuring English, French and Indigenous artists.